Chapter 24. Dawn stood on the front porch, staring up at the stormy sky. It was only afternoon, but it seemed later. Everything was a bluish gray, and the air was cool. Lightning and thunder traveled through the clouds every now and then. Much to his surprise, Dawn was actually quite comfortable. Despite the disturbing conversation he'd had with his real father the night before, his mind was at ease. Perhaps it was because he knew of a cure to the curse. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to use that cure. He doubted that power of suggestion nonsense would do any good, though he couldn't deny the conviction in Stephen's voice. The old man had truly believed that would be effective. Dawn wondered if Stephen's father had simply done that to him, or maybe performed an exorcism. And then there were the gods. Dawn looked up at the dark sky again. Thunder rumbled, as if in response to his thoughts. "Are you real?" he asked the sky. "Will you help me?" No thunder. Nothing. No, not nothing. A car was coming up the street toward his house. He didn't recognize it, but he did recognize the driver. He walked toward the car as it parked next to the mailbox. "Monica, what are you doing here?" He wasn't unhappy. She smiled at his smile. "I missed you, and the kids." She looked tired, but happy. "Do you mean what I think you mean?" he asked. "I want to start over," she replied. "Can we just start over?" Dawn hugged and kissed her. "What brought this on?" She looked around the gloomy neighborhood. "All of this, believe it or not," she laughed. "Being here with you and the kids. I missed being a wife and mother. I never realized how much until I gave it all up." "The old maid life just wasn't for you," Dawn joked. "Watch who you're calling old." They laughed again, and then they kissed. The family spent the whole day together. The weather improved greatly, allowing them to picnic in a park nearby. It had seemed a cheesy idea at first, but everyone enjoyed it. Dawn and Monica discussed the idea of selling the house. Considering all the terrible things that had gone on in and around the place, Dawn was more than willing to make the decision. This discussion, of course, led to speculation about what had happened to the previous owner. All Dawn had heard was that the man had passed away. He assumed it was natural causes, due to old age, but Monica encouraged him to open his mind to the possibility that he'd been murdered. Dawn called his realtor the next day to get the full story. She informed him that the man had died in his sleep and that no foul play was suspected. Dawn was surprised to find himself disappointed with this news. If the previous owner had been murdered, then the killer could have been the one committing these current homicides. Alas, the suspicion still fell upon Connor. Jordan was running the track at school when he felt a presence next to him. Aaron was keeping pace with him, barely sweating at all. Jordan, on the other hand, was sweating buckets. "Did you hear that Leo killed himself?" she asked him. Jordan nearly tripped. "When?" "Yesterday. I guess he couldn't handle the nightmares anymore." "I let him down." Jordan stopped jogging. "What do you mean?" Aaron asked. "I should have been trying to help stop the nightmares by figuring out how Connor started them in the first place. I thought I'd found something at my grandpa's." "Your grandpa's?" Aaron interrupted. "Oh, yeah. I met my long-lost grandpa the other day. Unfortunately, he didn't tell me anything.
What about Connor?
He told him stuff, but I don't know what. Connor wouldn't share.
There was nothing you could have done,
Aaron tried to assure him. The rest of PE class passed them. I could have asked Connor to undo what he did to Leo. Aaron didn't respond. She was clearly thinking the same thing, which made him feel worse. Deirdre tried to go about her regular routine after returning from Augusta a few days ago, but the interview with that Ivy woman still rattled her bones. Before, she had only a strong hunch that the mystery surrounding Donovan Scott was worth investigating. Now, she knew. The question now was whether or not she wanted to continue that investigation. She thought of the people who'd been murdered near Mr. Scott and was afraid of ending up like them. But what did Ivy have to do with anything? Were she and Don part of some homicidal cult or something? Did Ivy have multiple personalities? What did she mean about venturing forth from this prison? Did she mean the actual women's prison? Deirdre didn't think so. Not really. There was no doubt in her mind that she had spoken with two individuals that day, but was Ivy aware of that other personality? She'd seemed confused when the other voice went away. Deirdre decided there and then that she would continue her investigation. The answers to this compelling mystery would be worth the risk. Dad had made the announcement during dinner one night that he and Mom were getting back together. Jordan figured as much since she'd returned a week ago and stayed in Dad's room. Also, she was slowly moving all of her belongings into the house, which was a huge tip-off. Jordan was happy about this because he missed his mom. After all the terrible things that had happened over the past year, he wanted things to go back to normal. Mom and Dad getting back together was a huge step in achieving that. Things did seem to improve after meeting Grandpa, Jordan also realized. Connor and Dad were getting along better, and no one else had been murdered in or around the house. Progress. Dad also announced he was selling the house and buying a new one. That news excited Jordan. He liked new things with their new smells and relished the thought of a house in which nobody passed away. He harbored the belief that the previous owner's ghost resided in the walls. Speaking of walls, Jordan hoped the new owners didn't find the one in his closet wall that Connor had drilled there during a storm. All in all, life was pretty good. Jordan still felt guilty about Leo's suicide, but there was nothing he could do about it now. The boy had suffered those nightmares for so long anyway that he probably would have been insane for the rest of his life. At least he would have been alive, a voice reminded Jordan. No amount of rationalization would change the fact that Connor had done something supernatural to Jack and Leo. Connor's nauseating vibe seemed to vanish after talking with Grandpa, however, and no one else brought it up, so Jordan decided to ignore it as well. Hopefully, this peace would last forever.